Welcome. I'm Harmony Slater, your host of the Finding Harmony podcast. Over the past 20 years, I've taught thousands of yoga teachers and students to explore the intersection between ancient wisdom and modern everyday life, using mind-body practices to heal, awaken, and manifest their dreams from the inside out. This podcast is a sanctuary for those feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges. Are you ready to jump in and discover how these challenges aren't actually in the way, but are the way to finding harmony? Let's invite the magic back in. Hi, welcome. I'm so happy you're here listening to the Finding Harmony podcast. And guess what? Today is an amazing day because B School is open. So come on over to my website, register now, get in. You can start 2 bonus programs right away and be in touch with me joining into my mastermind group, which I'll be offering for the full month of August. I cannot wait to connect with you inside B School and support you in building the business of your dreams. Now, today we are meeting with Kyle Eaton, who many of you know. He's a Mysore teacher, has spent a lot of time in Mysore. He is now living in Greece, and we are going to talk to him about his journey through yoga and what he's up to in Greece right now, how he has also started to integrate some other types of controlled articular rotations to create greater mobility in his body. We're going to talk a lot about what he's found in his personal practice and how it's helped him doing some different types of movement, including different movements into his routine to create more stability and health and healing in his body, and to help students also create greater health and healing in their bodies, in addition to the traditional Ashtanga yoga practice. So it's a fun interview. Kyle's really an interesting person with a lot of cool experiences in his life to talk about and share. And I can't wait to jump in with you. So let's just get started. Hi, welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. I'm your host, Harmony, and I'm here with Russell Case.
Today, we are going to try and find out where our guest is from. Now, just on the limited experience that we spent in the first 10 minutes talking about the Allman Brothers, I'm going to say that he's actually from Jacksonville, Florida.
Well, you're close, actually. That's a very good guess. Dunedin, Florida, which is a little bit outside of Tampa.
Don't mess with me, sweetie. I can call that shit.
I
can
was
call it.
Spot on.
I heard the fucking cadence, and I was like, wait a second. He's not from Athens, Greece. And then I had to do a little bit of digging. And the way that he said Cali is like, wait a second. And then he went on about, Dickie Betts, and it was like, Jacksonville. Let me see, now, what city in Florida do you call it again?
Dunedin.
Dunedin. We're going to see how close that is to Jacksonville.
He probably knows.
About 3.5, 4 hours south.
Oh, well,
west.
Clearwater.
Southwest.
Petersburg. Yeah. Oh, Petersburg. Yeah. St. Pete.
St. Pete.
You're basically from St. Pete. All right.
I'm North Pinellas. It's a distinction.
That triggered. That was a trigger.
Yeah.
That was a trigger.
No, hey, St. Pete's amazing. It would be, if I was to live in that area again, it would probably either be where I grew up. Ozona is amazing, but I'm way priced out of that place at this point. Tarpon Springs is also nice, but St. Pete's, it's vibrant. It's a city. It's got the Dali Museum. It's got food. It's got, not that I do it anymore, but nightlife. And, so
People.
Yeah, exactly. Where you go to downtown Tampa and okay, it's coming out of it, but it's, you go to a downtown metropolitan area, you expect people to be out and walking, and you go to downtown Tampa and it's just like ghost town, so course, when I lived there.
The age of people, do you think?
I don't know. It's just traditionally there wasn't a lot of residential,
Right.
buildings down there. It was all just kind of business buildings and office buildings. So, whereas St. Petersburg it's a lot more densely, and you've got like Old Northeast is this amazing old neighborhood with, the wooden houses and beautiful landscaping. And it's, St. Petersburg's great for sure.
I spent my summers in Pensacola with my grandparents.
Great.
So.
And, I was listening to the Tom's podcast with y'all the other day. You're from New Orleans?
I'm not from anywhere. That's the problem.
Gotcha.
Is that I can't claim if I say to the people from New Orleans I'm from New Orleans, they laugh me out of the room. Just like when I go to Detroit and visit my dad, those people are weird. That's where I'm born, is Pontiac, but I like those people. Those are not my people. I mean, they are my people, but I can't even do the accent. I can do accents real well, but I cannot do the Michigander. I can't even get close to it. And so, then there's Illinois, there's Kansas. I spent most of my life in San Francisco.
Yeah.
10 years. That's the most of it, but I'm not from there.
Who is anymore?
Is Johnny from California?
Johnny's from like LA, yeah.
Oh, he's not from San Francisco either.
No, but he's been up north since, I forget when he told me. I think like 1980 maybe, because he bought land way up north, and he was like living in a tent out in the mountains for many years, Yeah.
I looked at his Instagram this morning. You two have a lot in common. You got that whole cat California thing.
For sure. I found the right teacher in a lot of ways, for sure. And it was amazing to, find this soul that he really, coming from Florida, it hardens you up as for a young man, for me at least, growing up in the 90s, it was a different trip, and going out there just blew me wide open and just like really opened me up to different mindsets and different approach to life,
Best
thing I ever did was move to California for sure,
But why would you do that?
I just was chasing the green rush and wanting to do something a little different, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So
I don't know if you mean green rush by the Emerald Triangle or you mean like just making paper.
Both, but doing certain things in Florida was just not the reality that
in California.
Yeah, it was completely acceptable there, and I landed in Sonoma County because just a mutual friend was there and was like, oh, this place is amazing. At first I was looking down south, and ended up there though. And I just remember we were looking for houses around Santa Rosa, and it's like, okay, this kind of reminds me of St. Pete, right? And it's like, okay, but then we decided to go out to the coast, out towards Jenner, and I just remember driving through Guerneville, which is where I ended up settling, and seeing all the redwoods and just, these mountains, and then getting out to that coast and just these dramatic cliffs and the beautiful like succulents and the purples and the greens. And it was just like, yeah, this is it right here. This is what I want.
So nice.
Yeah.
So how did you find yoga in all of this, in this journey from Florida to California?
So, I started kind of doing yoga at the gym like you do. Like I started lifting weights when I was probably 16, 17 years old, and was just doing that trip. And was just, I remember my ex was taking me to some classes here and there. And I remember seeing the teacher was kind of showing off, but she went into like yoga nidras, and like my jaw dropped. I'm like, what is this? And off and on playing with that, and then moved to California, and still just dropping in weekly to a class here and there, like some vinyasa classes. And then just kind of had some events push me into just questioning like what am I doing, and this not acknowledging the part of my soul that really wanted to shine and that wanted to like be accepting and open and to grow, and so was kind of going through a shakeup from a bad breakup, and then also had some other events pop through that just really made me question like chasing material, chasing ideas of what I thought a man needed to be, what I thought a human existence needed to be, and attaining influence with people and attaining material, and just realizing how all of that, at the end of the day, you can never be satisfied. And then you can never have enough. And really, it's not a fulfilling purpose in life. And so in the midst of all this, just was very depressed. And I just had a moment where something came to me, and spoke to me and said, if you want to be happy, you need to start doing yoga. And for me at the time, I was familiar with the asana, but I knew it was going to be something a little deeper. So I got like Hatha Yoga Pradipika, I got the Yoga Sutra. And I just remember, like, when I'm reading through the Yoga Sutra, like, things just they were so familiar, and it clicked. And then I was seeing, like, about the ego and the higher self and the lower ego, and just realizing how much my lower ego had just seeped into all of my actions, and how it had really caused a lot of my own personal ruin, and then just acknowledging that and owning my own responsibility for where I was at, but just identifying that, okay, it's not a bad thing, but I want to, like, move away from just having this automatic response of this is, reacting towards people because I'm feeling insecure, because my ego feels a certain kind of way, and judging people because of that, and not feeling like seeing people that are successful and being jealous of that, because it's all just that insecure ego, like, lashing out, reaching. And from there, then I just did practice. And I remember dropping into an intro to Ashtanga class in Guerneville. And I was like, it was pumping, it was moving. And I was like, yes, and then the guy that was doing it, Richard, he said, you need to come see my teacher, Johnny, And so then I went to Johnny's lead primary that he used to do on Sundays, and just was like, wow, this is it. And Johnny said, you should come this week, come to Mysore. And so that was it. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And so then you, like, were down the rabbit hole,
Way down.
yoga, Mysore style.
For sure, because I was wanting something more traditional. I was wanting something less music, less, something to kind of help me draw in, focus the senses. Because I was sitting at the time, but I just wanted something different.
I just love Johnny so much, and I just wanted to say that I found him to be an extraordinary source of someone that can trigger your own enlightenment. Is how I think of him, as someone that, in the right moment at the right time, he will say something to you to blow your mind and make you realize how ego identified you were with a particular position, and then at the same time be extraordinarily welcoming and encouraging to someone who wants to, to come in and be a presence in yoga. I'm gonna put my flag here and say I'm part of this yoga thing. Come on in. He's not pushing people away from that.
No.
I just love him, and I don't know anyone that doesn't love him.
Same. He's a complicated individual, as we all are. But, he's got so much love. And he used to just, after the lead class, he would sit there and talk, and you could just feel that love radiating out of him. And I think, this is what, we harmonize on that. And it lifts us all up, right? It's ultimately our, like, greatest cause and purpose as humans, is to be able to generate and project our love and to inspire others, right? And he just loves the yoga so much, and he totally believes in it. He's 65 and he's still practicing, like 4 or 5 times a week. He's not like putting his leg behind his head and doing all that stuff, but he's doing what he can, and he feels good, and he loves it, and that just inspires all the people around him, for sure.
Yeah, that brings up I have 2 questions for both of you. I have this sense, this feeling, and I'm curious what your opinion is, that, like, men tend to enjoy the Ashtanga Mysore style practice more because, for a couple reasons. It's, like, independent and self-led. So, like, you have control of your practice and your environment. I think you don't have to listen to other people's music or like fluffy kind of like Om Shanti platitudes playing in the background. And it's really physical. It's really challenging physically. So there's like a great deal of like stamina and strength components to it, as well as just sort of like flexibility and relaxing. And so I always feel like Ashtanga yoga as taught by Pattabhi Jois and this Mysore method really resonates with a masculine kind of energy. What do you guys think?
Absolutely.
Many of us,
it's
still mostly women.
Ironically, that's what I was going to say. I think it is mostly women. But then, you go to certain places. I went and visited Heather Cerna like a few weeks ago in Florida, and it was all men, literally. There was one woman there one day, and then two women the next day. But
I think if you compare it to vinyasa style, there's more men.
With all respect to my wife, yeah, mostly men are going to go see Heather Cerna.
She's great,
She is a foxy lady.
Given her the name of a human can opener, which Johnny actually had always told me Tim was the human can opener, Tim Miller, but she's the new incarnation of it because I've seen her just say.
What does that mean? Oh, you mean like an adjustment?
Yeah.
Is she brutal?
Is she strong?
All the more reason to visit her.
She's not brutal, but I've seen her get people into. Now she's super mellow, and she's always been really gentle with me. But I've looked over at her in Mysore, and she's pulling this guy in. So I was like, "What?" And she was laughing at me, smiling.
No, don't putz around. Don't like fart around. Don't like just soft hands me. Pull me the fuck in.
See, I think it's really like, I think it resonates with a very strong masculine kind of energy.
For
more
sure.
than say like a vinyasa.
I mean, it's
Heather Cerna. I agree.
It's definitely masculine.
100% agree.
And...
Heather, I hope you're listening. Pull me in, sweetie.
Oh God.
You're making me blush. It is
now,
masculine.
You have a very attractive wife yourself, but I don't want to get off on a tangent. But we want to talk about her later. But
and a young child too.
And a young
For
child.
sure.
I feel like your whole story is really like a love story.
I'm feeling very much in love, definitely with all of it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So then the other thing that sort of I was thinking about, which is interesting, talking about Johnny and aging and the practice and how, when you're younger, I think a lot of the emphasis of practice tends to be on like the physicality of it and the achievement oriented aspect of it. And I mean, you and I met in Mysore, India, so we know that environment and sort of this emphasis of achievement and performance. And it's like touching all of these sort of competitive edges around showing up and like working hard and pushing yourself to the limit. And maybe someone's going to take argument with this, but I'm pretty sure that's still the experience in Mysore these days. But when you're aging, and I think this is sort of what you're speaking to with Johnny too, is I think there's a natural shift, at least there has been for us, in that it's not so much about achievement or performance. It's more about like feeling into your body and trying to make yourself feel good, right? Like just letting your body naturally move into ranges of motions that it probably isn't going to naturally move into during the day, and exploring sort of potential and possibility within the body. It's a very different kind of approach to practice. And I'm curious, because you have a lot of interest in the functional movement, sort of calisthenics activities in addition to yoga, how your approach has changed, and does that kind of resonate with where you're at these days?
I mean, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I really love the functional range conditioning and the Ken stretch, is because it's less fixated on the shape that you make and more fixated on how does this feel, right? And for me, it's been very transformative in the way that I can use my body, and just knowing, and especially as a teacher, even seeing students, I can see what's going on, why they can't do their binds and Marichasana, why they're having problems with their forward folds. It's because maybe it's not your hamstring so much as your hip flexion's limited. Maybe it's not so much that your, arms are short. It's just you have restricted internal rotation for your shoulder. And for me, it's been an amazing journey. And the more I do it, the more I'm learning about it. And also the people that are part of that organization, I feel like are very much not competitive, not trying to be any kind of gurus or any kind of anything more than what they are, which is just educators, and they're just trying to help people embody their bodies the best that they can and regain mobility that they might have lost, and also regain, just a sense of happiness with the way they move. Or like you said, yeah, and especially in Mysore, and I'm not faulting the Ashtanga practice at all, because I think, as anything, when it gets interpreted through the human organism, a lot of times, yeah, that little ego self is wanting to take over, and I'm guilty of it too, instead of like just doing what feels good for the day, I've got to push deeper and deeper, and then I'm getting a back spasm or something's not feeling good for a week or two. And as I get older, yeah, it's just really, we got to check in and say, what am I doing this for? It's ultimately to feel good, right? It's not to be in pain. It's not to like look a certain way or impress somebody with something. And a lot of us, we do want to like, I've thought about it in some ways, some of these like advanced asanas, it's almost a fetish with the way we want to like contort ourselves and do this. But I think a lot of us would do it even if no one was looking, right?
But would you do the advanced asanas if no one was looking?
Some of them, yeah. Like the arm balances are fun, it's fun stuff, right?
I was thinking, 20 years ago, a conversation that people were having in Mysore was, do you do any massage or rolfing at all? And that was like a naughty thing. Don't take massage. We heard.
I know that's still
like even like more advanced.
That's still advertised over there, and I'm like.
And so there was the pushback on that we came up with was like, you wouldn't put a dirty spoon in the dishwasher. You'd scrape it first and make sure, you got all the crunchy bits off, but then put it in the dishwasher. And then the Ashtanga yoga works. And I think that's, when I was looking at your videos, I feel like you've really cottoned on to it. That there are some sticky bits that need to get worked out. For example, your Karandavasana work was exquisite.
Thank you.
I watched your Karandavasana come down and I saw immediately the issue.
Yeah.
And then I saw your video where you explained what you needed to do in terms of flexion in the lower back to solve it. And it was like, wow. And I commented on it. That was this morning. It was absolutely right that you needed to look at this. You laid down on your back, you went to lotus, and you curled your lotus up towards your chest. And it was like, oh, that's perfect. That's exactly what you need to get that thing as tight as possible to be able to accomplish the tight little knot that you need, the package, as I always thought of it. I got to make my package. When my package is open, the whole thing will lose integrity and won't be able to get back up. And that you had articulated the entire thing in your Instagram was so beautifully put. And I know that you're doing that in every other part of your body as well, thinking about what mechanics do I need to be able to do Marichasana D, or to be able to do a back bend. I saw you do your back bend work with your upper back. It's really cool to see. And I know
Thank you.
Also totally, unorthodox and frowned upon.
Yeah. I'm just.
I think Mark Roberts got kicked out of the.
For sure. And he inspired me in a lot of ways too. And, out of many of the teachers that are out there, he's one of the ones that I would consider going to, actually, that I think, would have a lot to offer me. Whereas at this point, I think just dropping into some people's shalas, I'm like happy to be there. But then just knowing my own body and what they're telling me to do, I'm kind of like, I don't know. Yeah, just because I know that okay, I know I need to pull that lotus in. I know I need to get more flexion, but how many times? Because also practicing by myself, how's that going to happen on its own unless you're trained in the prerequisites for it, right? And so much, that's what I tell my students is, okay, even the best intentions go out the window when you're upside down, So this is, if I can lay down and take the gravity out of it, I can focus more on that, laying down those neuromuscular pathways and learn how to curl that flexion in and keep it tight. And it also conditions the core to do that. And so,
and there's also a physics element to it. When you're using strength to move mass, if the strength isn't there, the mass won't move, and then it won't learn. But when you're doing it on the ground, you take that element out, and then you can isolate it.
Exactly.
And that's exactly how you're going to learn it.
Exactly.
It's really cool.
And it's been really helpful for me too, because, with my back bends, my back is stiff and it's been progressively getting more and more stiff after 40. One of the main components that I'm trained is like segmenting the spine. Some of us are blessed with, we can, without even trying, just find that beautiful curvature to the spine, and every single vertebrae moves just the way it can. But for me, I used to deadlift with 400 pounds. I would squat with 400 pounds, and I tweaked, probably herniated some discs. I can tell you when. It was deadlifting 315 pounds for 15 reps, and so that segment of my back stopped moving the way it used to. It's really just been a challenge to try to reintegrate that consciousness there. And you're not going to get that by just doing Urdhva Dhanurasanas, ad nauseum, right? It's just, you're not going to, especially not when you're practicing mostly by yourself.
And that really speaks to Harmony's earlier question, I think, because you take a couple of Southern boys who've been maybe playing football and screwing around or maybe skateboarding. I don't know what you did down in Tampa.
Definitely.
And then you take that guy and you throw him in a yoga class with a bunch of girls that have been doing gymnastics since they were 5 or dancing. And that's usually what's going on. And the boy is struggling a little bit.
Yep.
And the whole experience of your first day through the first 10 years is part and parcel 1,000% different from the female perspective.
Of course.
Because she's going into that experience like, oh, I like this. This is nice. And I'm going into it like, this is fucking hell. Day one. And I'm learning. I think I'm learning exponentially more than she is, because I'm face to face with my own samskara, my own habits, my own sheaths, my own koshas are like right on the first day. I'm in confrontation with the self in a deep cellular level, and she's having a nice, sweet time.
Again, I go back to my first class, with Johnny. It was a lead primary, and he did a slightly unconventional lead primary where and I remember there was this girl, it was amazing. And she's sitting there doing, Viparita Chakrasana after the back bends. He would have us doing 12 back bends for lead primary, and then people would stand up and do drop backs. And then she's doing her TikToks, and just like, where am I? What is going on here? I was like, I want to do that. But then, faced with the reality of my situation that didn't stop me from pushing myself though, right?
It doesn't stop you from trying, actually.
No. My body transformed so much, It's when we set the right intention, because my intention was to try to just be my best as a human. And really, I remember trying to sit there before practice and just envisioning like my energetic self as gold, and then trying to just visualize that through the practice. And
wow,
my tissue got, so much more supple and long. And I went from, because I was, not eating meat also affected it, but I went from 187 pounds to, 155, 160, somewhere in there. And all the tissue changed and just lean and such a different, it transformed my body in so many ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Because before you were like a bodybuilder, basically,
I was
like lifting weight.
much more hinch for sure. You know, I mean, my genetics, I was never a bodybuilder, right? But it's like, I'm what they call a hard gainer. So, but I was strong, you know, but with the strength, I was definitely stiff as well.
What did you notice when you changed your diet? Like you were talking about, you know, shifting your diet, you shifted your practice, what you were doing with your body too. But like,
yeah, I mean,
how
when
do you think changing your diet influenced it?
definitely eating less protein, less calories, which I think kind of ties into an exchange that we had on social media once too, which I think it affected my hormones and maybe long term not so good, right? So I'm really trying to prioritize more protein, more calories now, and not like having the intermittent fasting until like noon or 1, you know, really trying to get meals in first thing. But yeah, that certainly leaned everything out big time. And I remember when I first started practicing, I was like super pita imbalanced, right? And you would see a puddle of sweat around I mean, it would seep out this far from the outside of my mat. You'd take my rug and it was just like, just like holding a gallon of water and it was smelling. It had this ammonia smell, you know? So I was just like detoxing so much, you know, for sure. Now my sweat doesn't smell at all, you know?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't sweat so much anymore, and I don't know if that's just getting older. We get more vata or what, but
I don't know. I haven't sweated.
I miss it.
Yeah, me too.
Since I was in India, that was the last time I actually sweat.
Yeah.
Or when I mow the lawn.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Can I ask you though? You talked about your genetics, and I'm really interested in this because I've known a lot of Southern men in my time in my life, and I feel like I've met you before. And you would maybe normally you maybe get involved in a trade or, you know, a welder or maybe, you know, trucking. And yet you went into the green rush and you read books that guys like you don't normally read. And what I'm interested in is that samskara in you. Can you point to something in your parents where you'd say, yeah, my dad also would sit down and read weird books like my dad did. He read weird shit and he was just always reading, even though he's a fucking mechanic. I know dad listens to the radio show, but no offense, but he's a weird cat for being that way. No one else in the machine shop read the shit that he read.
Yeah, my dad actually is a welder, but he's never really part of my life, so I can't really say that I've had much influence out of him. My mom read voraciously when I was young, but I feel like it was mostly fiction. For me, I've always, even since I was young, I was drawn to like esoteric. I was drawn to, so obviously it is a karmic samskara. Something's coming through for sure. Yeah, I remember being fascinated with the occult and with UFOs and with Stonehenge and checking out books when I was like 7, 8 years old, just learned to read, you know, and was loving that stuff. So that was part of the trip why I feel like I needed to leave Florida though, I just didn't feel like, you know, now it's different. It's a little more, there's more people like us there, you know, but yeah, I think part of my journey was certainly just wanting to like embody who I always felt like I always was, but because of that, society kind of put on a facade of somebody else, you know?
Yeah, you have to be a particular way if you're going to be in the world.
Yeah, exactly. It's
so fascinating. Yeah, I think, I don't know, I have this sense that there's like that consciousness is evolving and you're part of our generation. We were sort of into, I feel like, this alternative kind of, you know, back tapping into this energy that came from the 60s. There was like a real thread, a through thread of this, you know, with the Grateful Dead and Fish and, you know, Pink Floyd and, you know.
So you start listening to The Cure.
The Cure, like all these sort of like
Instead of CC and the Music Factory.
I started out with that in the early 90s.
There you go. There we go.
But it's interesting because I feel like now, even like the young people, they're even on this very different evolution of consciousness. Like
Yes.
what's normal or what they're thinking about is very different than what we even were exposed to or thought about as children.
Don't you want to douse the whole Zoomer population with LSD like right now?
They're doing it themselves. Everyone microdosing.
They're microdosing. It's a little different, right? They're not getting puddled. Getting puddled's a little different.
Puddled. Did he say? What did you say? They're not getting puddled?
Puddled, yeah.
I've never heard that before. I love it.
Yeah, that's where you hold your hand at.
Like your face. Yeah.
Yeah, I've slipped into a couple puddles for sure. It's been a while, but I had a kid working for me a few years ago, and I mean, it's amazing how turned on he was. He was, I was like, God, you're 22 years old and you're talking like that. It's amazing. Because when I was 22, I was crazy, but Florida man, right? So,
You were out there wrestling alligators naked in the night.
Not naked, but yeah, we would definitely go shine them with the boat. And, I wasn't jumping in, but our friends were definitely jumping in and grabbing them for sure. Little ones,
Little ones normally have parents around.
Yeah. That's the problem.
But you're also a new father, and so how is this?
I want to know about this love story.
Yeah.
So
you met this beautiful girl. She sounds amazing, and she's gorgeous, and she's a singer and all kinds of things.
She sings, but she's more an artist, right? She's got her master's in fine arts with an emphasis on photography. That is actually translated into her her social media is amazing, and so the only reason why mine looks even decent is just for her guidance. So I met her in 2016 at a random lunch at, I think, what is it, the hotel behind the Southern Stars at Sri Guru, right?
The Metropole.
It's
Sri Guru, yes.
Yeah, it's Tom used to love eating there, exactly. And so I met her there randomly. And then the next year I saw her and we went up to Chamundi on Shivaratri, but we both had relationships. And so it was just like a friendly kind of hangout. And then the next year we saw each other. And at that point, I think we were just both at a similar place in our relationships where our partners were kind of like anti the yoga. They felt like, threatened by the presence of this practice in our lives and it taken away from them. So I think we clicked in that regard, and we enjoyed spending a lot of time with each other. So one thing led to another, and we both had breakups, via long distance. And
wow.
So
a real love story.
It's been, we've skipped conference and went up to Chamundi, and that was it. We've been together ever since. We were doing the long distance thing for 3 years, but it was easy because she would come to California for a couple months, and then we would meet up in India for a couple months, and then just back and forth. We would spend time with each other, and then COVID happened, and I was actually over here in Athens, had already booked my ticket for, I don't know when the world closed down. It was like March 14th or something, and I had a project that, we were breaking ground in Northern California, and it was already like the wheels were turning. My partner's, you got to get over here. Let's get this going. And I remember thinking, I really don't want to leave, but I did. And we ended up not seeing each other for a year because the borders were closed. And so as soon as we had the opportunity, we met up in Mexico, because at the time, Europeans couldn't come directly into the US. They had to stay for 2 weeks in a place like Mexico or Bulgaria or something, which is so arbitrary. Like, you can come from Mexico, but you can't come from Europe. And so then
shed the COVID as you travel.
Yeah. And so then we've literally been together ever since, because after that, things were moving in a way. And I was like, I'm happy. Let's do something different. Your work's over in Greece, so I'm just going to come with you. And so that was June of 2021. And then we got married over here, and I got my permanent residency. And yeah,
Amazing.
I could just
And had a baby.
you had a baby. Yeah.
I could just imagine her in her mind. She's Greek, right? I have to
Yeah.
assume she's Greek. I just imagine her in her mind, like, he is a Viking. I love him.
He's a Viking.
She likes the Southern thing. That's the more than the Viking. Definitely the Southern. She loves, because I don't hear it, but
Slow pace.
they think I have an accent apparently. So
you don't hear it.
Just a little one.
Yeah.
Shit, I'd put my accent on for you.
So since you've been living in Greece, are you teaching yoga?
I was teaching at Heartwood a little bit when I was up in Cali, which used to be this kind of like the northern California version of Esalen. They would do lots of spiritual retreats, and anyway, at this point, it's barely utilized. So I was teaching a little bit over there, but yeah, nobody was really coming. And then when I had moved to Trinity County, that was even nobody was. There's no place to even teach. So yeah, I'm teaching over here. It's all basically through her social media. So
Yeah, great.
yeah, but we got a great group of students. They're really sweet.
Nice.
I thought I saw a photograph that she posted of her performing in front of a big crowd. Was that someone? Maybe that was someone else. I thought it was her. Maybe you went to a concert together. I'm sorry.
We might have gone to a concert. Yeah, I don't think she was.
All right, never mind.
She's shy. She would never
Grease
get in front and sing.
Stars. Okay.
All
right.
Beautiful.
I love the suite of photographs of her as her. She talked about her fear and apprehension about having a baby, and
of course,
letting everyone know that that she was pregnant, and then all those photographs of you all. This is our last month together, but just being the two of us. We're about to be 3.
Yeah.
Then you all had a home birth.
Yes.
What has this all been like for you?
It's a big change.
It has. I mean, of course, a lot of us Ashtangis, we worry about what life's going to be like. Am I gonna? For the men, obviously, it's a different trip about what our practice is going to do in terms of the transformation of the mother or the woman. It's such a dramatic thing. It's really seeing her embrace her femininity, and that aspect of it has made me just love her so much more. It's such a beautiful transformation, and she's embraced it so wholeheartedly. And but it's also taught her, and by proxy me, so much more about bandhas, and we say bandhas, but pelvic floor health, which is also important for men, and it's also something that we don't talk about a lot. And yeah, the home birth was a trip. She was in labor for 5 days. It was, I can't even imagine. She's such a amazing person for making that happen, and having this healthy baby. And
wow,
it's, 5 days is crazy. We can't even, myself and the midwife were sleeping, and she was up having contractions all night. She's such a strong, such a strong person. It's amazing, and to see her move too is just wow, just mastery of the body. When I took my first mobility course in 2019, they're like, if you want to have the most healthy bodies are kids that did dance or gymnastics, and so she was a rhythmic gymnast when she was young. Yeah. And it's just turned into, we talk about active versus passive, flexibility and mobility. And, she can almost do everything active that she can do in terms of a passive stretch, whereas someone like me, it's, you know, I need some help for sure, but
What
back
would
to
be the difference, just for like our listeners who don't know, between the active and the passive stretch, and what's the benefit to both equally?
let's take, for instance, if you're going into like your basic, we'll say like a pigeon, you can come into a pigeon, and assuming you can lay down on the floor and get that knee up to your chest, right? That's your passive range, right? Theoretically, if you have the neuromuscular control, you should be able to glue your leg in the same position to your chest, even when you pick your body up, and against the gravity, you should be able to pull that up, right?
That seems
No.
really
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. If you have the right neuromuscular pathways and you have the right strength, it's possible, right?
Yeah.
The beauty of doing the mobility work, though, is because a lot of times we get injured when we're in like our end range, right? And there's multiple components to this mobility work, and one range of that component is end range training. You put your body in that end range and you apply force, but you do it in a controlled manner where you're doing what they call ramping up the tension, saying you're starting here and you're just ramping up your intensity. And by doing that over and over again, you condition that tissue to be able to accept force in that end range, because you take my shoulder, for instance, and, I'm going to hold my arm up to here, right? This is my end range of overhead shoulder flexion. All of this, when I'm moving from down to my waist, all the way up to almost, where my hands arm level, this is like our middle range. This is where we use most of our strength, right? And this is where we're very strong. But when we get to that end range, this is when we're going to get hurt if there's too much. If the force exceeds what the tissue's capacity is to accept the force, that's when the injury occurs.
Okay.
Yeah. That's one of the benefits of the mobility,
Yeah, that's a great example because I have that range of motion. That's an active push, but that's so very different from imagining staying in pigeon while I stand up. There are people who can do that. That's incredible.
I've seen it. There's one guy that was on Instagram. I forget, Gokul Chandra. He's, I'm sure you've seen him. Right. He's crazy, but he's fucking crazy. He can actively, without touching his leg, he can put his leg behind his head, just by willing it.
Remember that YouTube video that was Kung Fu versus yoga that was going around 15 years ago at the birth of YouTube?
No.
And there was this guy who was fighting all these Kung Fu guys in Hong Kong with his amazing yoga ability. And he would just stand there and go into Durvasasana. He would throw his foot behind his head standing up. And the Kung Fu guys were trying to fight him. They didn't know how to fight him. And eventually they just poured glue on him. That was the end of the fight. And it was, but Gokul Chandra could, And I tried for a long time to figure out how to throw my foot behind my head. It was not possible.
I used to be able to do it at one point.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I practiced it and did it.
Wow.
I could throw myself into lotus.
I couldn't do it now.
Yeah, I could do lotus on a good warm day for sure, but no, never.
What do you think the difference or maybe the detriment to practicing, say, Ashtanga yoga style and not having that active range of motion? Because so much of what we do is putting our body at these extreme places, but we don't actually have the capacity to hold it there through our own effort.
Yeah, injuries, right? And long-term injuries. I don't know if you guys remember, a few years ago, there was a girl that was like, I think, catching and her shoulder dislocated. And, that's because you're doing something that your body is not conditioned to really do,
That was Amberlyn.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and I question how many people really need to catch anyway. And, you can tell when you see like a 4 series body, right? And
you can tell immediately, yeah.
Yeah, but then those people, they need to work, especially those are the ones for the mobility work. They really have to work on that in-range stuff because they have the flexibility, but they're hypermobile. So if they don't strengthen their joints in these extreme ranges, then it's going to happen at some point, especially when that tissue elasticity gives up or the micro tears accumulate. And so that's a lot of Cirque du Soleil performers actually are training with Hunter Cook because, to maintain that high level of strength and flexibility, it requires conditioning. It doesn't just happen. And I think that's one of the hangups with the Ashtanga yoga is people look at it as this spiritual practice, which, okay, it is if you internalize things and if that's what you're doing. But if you're pushing yourself into these, very, very extreme advanced asana day after day, and you're not doing anything extracurricular to condition yourself, I don't see how that's sustainable,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it was for me personally. And I think because of exactly what you're describing is that I was going to the maximum end range of motion without being able to passively do it, as you said.
Yeah.
And so then what the result was constant inflammation. And then that is counter to the desire that I had, which was to do the posture, but my body is telling me to stop, take a break, let the inflammation come down. But my professional standard was I need these third series postures, or this whole trip has been a waste of investment.
Mm.
And then
that's Kapotasana for me, for sure. I wear a size 12 shoe. So for me, there's a big difference between touching my feet and catching my heels, and that.
I've never heard any of that.
That's a back spasm difference. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's a full 12 inches.
Yeah.
Difference.
That's so
You
funny.
got the little tiny feet, sweetie. That's not so much for you, is it?
Yeah.
No.
I love that posture, and I still do it all the time, but it's just, my days of feeling like I need to catch my heels, that's just crazy,
Yeah.
But for me, it's been a total relief not to maintain a professional standard of practice. Like emotionally, it's been an incredible relief just to go into the room and do some things that I feel like I should do or want to do.
Yeah.
But not because I'm trying to maintain my Instagram profile.
That's,
get students.
Christina and I, we don't typically practice with too many people around here because Greece it's a very full power kind of people that like the practice, which, okay, you can argue that's the Ashtanga population anyway, right? But it's just, do we want to have people judging us for just taking it easy and going mellow and being easy, or, it's just not necessary,
I do not want people judging me for taking it easy.
No. But at this point in our lives, if you're judging me, then that's your problem, right?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to not be in pain and just move, as you said earlier,
100%.
move in these ranges of motion that I don't get in a normal day,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's something really powerful about taking ownership of your practice back and not doing it for anyone else but yourself.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's empowering. And it's also maybe you have to go through a lot of emotional deconditioning as well, but
of course,
that's another story.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's always good to check in. What am I doing this for and why? And,
Love what Luke said about it. That you do it because you want to.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's a lot of internalized guilt and shame that starts to creep up on the Ashtanga yoga practitioner with this feeling like I didn't do enough.
Oh, yeah. I didn't do the whole practice.
Yeah.
I should have just done those extra 4 postures, but
I should have,
I should have woke up earlier and,
I should have woke up earlier.
I shouldn't have stayed up so late. I shouldn't have eaten this. And, it just that's when it was really good to find my wife, because that is one good thing about the Greeks is rush hour in Greece is like 9 a.m., like nobody's getting up early to do anything. So it's a much more relaxed vibe in terms of, like you can have a normal life. You're not having to go to bed at, 8 p.m. and it's because that's just not sustainable for normal people. That's outside of like a cave.
And there's something too, like if you're practicing yoga, for me, it feels like it should be to also enhance your life so that you're enjoying your life, not so that you're hating your life or you're feeling terrible about every choice you make and everything you do and nothing's ever good enough.
Right.
It's such a self-depreciating pattern to get stuck into. And I think it can sometimes take over a dedicated practitioner's life. And then instead of actually loving your life and your family and enjoying it and finding pleasure, where's pleasure in the equation, right? Being able to be present, you end up just doing exactly what you just said, like shoulding all over yourself about I shouldn't have. And then you just hate yourself in your life. It's the antithesis of yoga.
Yes. And
it's not too bad though if you're unemployed and on a trust fund and just living
and single,
Single.
and you just sleep most of the day, and that's you can go into the practice very relaxed.
And hey, I don't begrudge those people at all, but I do think maybe there's things that they're missing out on, and I get back to like with the child and worrying about like how is this going to affect our practice, how is this going to affect our lives, and then to think about the people that are not having children for that reason, and the amount of love and satisfaction and what they're missing out on because the practice is going to be gone. My daughter's going to be I'll be 64 when she's 18, so I'll be doing what I can, but that human's going to be there and I'm going to have tons of happiness from her, for many, many years. And that's, to me, it's just like, it's blown me wide open, my heart wide open. I never knew that I could be so fulfilled and so much in love, and so that for me has been so transformative,
Yeah. It's so beautiful.
Do you have a lot of family around, relatives helping you out with the baby?
My mother-in-law helps, but this is her 7th grandchild, so she helps a lot, but we don't impose on her too much, but say for instance, this morning the baby woke up pretty early and she ended up taking a nap through most of our class. We teach at the house. But she woke up, about, there was still probably 45 minutes to an hour left of the class. We took her, we all live in the same building, but it's not like my wife has 3 sisters. One of them lives in London, 2 live in this building, and her parents live on the top floor. But nobody's like up in each other's business so much, it's not. Yeah.
That sounds ideal.
Yeah, it is.
Nice to have support.
It really is.
Just like emotionally.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Do you eat together in the evening?
We do usually on Sundays or once a week we'll get together. Yeah. Yeah. But then in the summer they have a summer house on the island of Kea. It's about, which you should consider coming through one of these times when you go to Turkey for sure. Kea is about an hour from Athens, so it's an easy boat ride over there, and then like the whole family gets together, and it ends up it's going to be like, I think, counting Anna Lou, our daughter, I think it's going to be 17 people this year. It's pretty intense. Like my family's pretty small, at this point. There's just my immediate family. There's 4 of us. Yeah.
That's nice.
Does your family back home, are they learning Greek?
No way. No way. I've been taking it's Kalitara. Ekana Mathimaya Triskon. Yeah. So I can get around, but when I first moved here it was really tough, Where I grew up in Tarpon Springs, Florida, though, is a huge Greek American population. And so I picked up some words here and there, and I knew a lot about the culture. So when we actually met, Christina would reference things, and I would say, "Oh yeah, this and that." And she, "How do you know these things?" I'm trying to tell you, there's a lot of Greeks where I went to school and where I grew up. So
It's destiny.
yeah, it was very ironic that I ended up meeting her in India. When I tell people that I live in Greece, they feel like I met her in Tarpon Springs, and no.
That's so funny. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow. It's amazing.
And do you have any kind of workshops coming up? Are you traveling at all, or is
We're not so much. Christina got a job at a resort, the one and only. They just built this one and only in KS, so she's going to be teaching there all of July, all of August. We'll be, because the family has a house on the island, so we'll be there all summer. Yeah, which
Amazing.
it will be nice. I'm gonna pretty much just go to the beach with the baby every day and
enjoy your life.
Exactly. I have an online platform that I've been getting going, so I'm gonna just record content there and upload content and do that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you're only a little boat ride away from Cheshire, and you could
Cheshire,
and you could go over and
maybe
and see the baby.
I'm gonna go over to one of the Greek islands that's near there, I think.
It would be a long boat ride, but yeah, it's doable. Yeah, because you got to figure from Athens to Mykonos is, I think, 6 or 7 hours, and that's not even halfway across the Aegean, so it would be a long boat ride for you.
Yeah, there's one Greek island that's really close to Cheshire, but I forget which one it's called.
I know Kalymnos is where all the Greeks in Tarpon Springs are from, and that's pretty close to the eastern coast of
maybe
the Aegean.
Maybe it's that one.
I'm not sure, but yeah.
Historically, the Greeks have tried to keep the Turks out.
They weren't very successful for a couple hundred years.
They have a little animosity there.
Yeah. I guess goes both ways, which is a shame, because they are, they were basically the same culture for a long time. And
yeah, totally. 100%.
They eat the same goat cheese.
They do,
If that's,
Yeah. Brilliant. So how can people find you? What's the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, my social media, the Apollo Move is a good one. And then my online platform is apollomovement.moonbootsapp.com, which I'll put the link on there for you for that.
Yeah, perfect.
And right now that's...
He's named Apollo.
Is it? Oh.
We named him Apollo.
Great.
Yeah. He's a good one.
Yeah, I liked Apollo just because Apollo embodies light and, knowledge. Yeah. So that was kind of my hat tip to Greek culture.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, the sun god.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I had a great time.
To connect with you.
Yeah.
Hey, it's summertime and we have a fun summer challenge, a little game to play with you this summer. We want to get to know you. We want to stay connected and we want to see where you are listening to this episode of the Finding Harmony podcast. So wherever you are on your summer vacation, at the beach, at the cabin, or even a staycation at home, relaxing in the sun, maybe on your patio or by a fire pit, snap a photo, tag us at Finding Harmony Podcast on Instagram, and we cannot wait to see where you're listening to the Finding Harmony podcast and reach out and connect with you and say hi. So come on over, take a photo, post it to your social media, your stories, or a post, tag at Finding Harmony Podcast, and let us know what you loved about the episode you're listening to, what episode you're listening to, what you loved about the episode you're listening to. I can't wait to see you and connect with you online soon. That's it. We've concluded another episode of the Finding Harmony podcast. I just want to thank you so much for doing the work that changes the world, starting with yourself. It truly does make a huge difference. Please make sure you have your automatic downloads turned on wherever you listen so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. I have so much more magic I can't wait to share with you. Lastly, if you're on Instagram, I love connecting and hearing from you. So come on over and say hello at Finding Harmony Podcast. And you can also come say hello to me personally at Harmony Slater Official. Thank you again for being here. I cannot wait to share more with you in our next episode.